Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Cabinet Vision Guy. In this episode we're going to continue our series on JavaScript and we're going to take another look at the JavaScript shaping object. In the first episode and the introduction to the shaping object, we looked at how we can use it to shape parts and assemblies, and in this episode I'd like to look at some examples of how we can use it to shape operations, countertops and doors. So I'm going to start with operation shaping, and as you can see I've got a simple filler component on screen at the moment. I'll just switch to the object tree. So I've got a simple filler that I've manually added, and then I've got a route that's also been added to this on the face of the filler part, and as you can see there's a radius that's been applied to the center. If I just switch to face view so we can see this, you'll see that I've added some CAD in here as well just to help me explain the UCS that we're going to look at in a second. If I click on my component and have a look, what I've got in this UCS is I've got a couple of parameters that help me set the radius and the border size for the route operation that I've got set here. So if I just modify these to show you what it does, if I specify I want a radius of 150 and I'll go 175. So we can include our radius in the corner. If I want to make it smaller, we can do that. Or we can specify a border size as well. So if I make that 50, we can probably get away with a bigger radius. There we go. And the way we're doing this is we're creating the route operation, and then we're defining or redefining the shape of the operation, again using the JavaScript object model. So this is just an excerpt from the UCS that we've got above here. So I'm going to talk you through this just like I did in the previous episode. I'm just going to have to set this so it's got the correct border size and radius. So working from top down, again, we've got two variables up at the top for the border and radius that allow me to define that on part level. I've then got another two variables that help me set the route width and the route height, which is obviously just this.dx and this.dy minus the border times 2. And then we've got a function that makes the shape, and I'm going to skip over that for a second and just go down to the part where we're actually adding the operation. So we dim the operation as we normally would. And then right down at the bottom here, we do custom.setShape. And then when we set in the shape of the operation, we provide the route width, the route height, and the radius to our makeShape function. And the makeShape function is the part that's actually redefining our entire sort of operation shape to include the radiuses in the corner. So again, I've added a little bit of CAD with each section to it. Now, just like when we're shaping an assembly, there is an order in which we should define the shape of an operation. So again, we're moving counterclockwise. So to begin with, what we do is we do a shape.addLine command, and we just draw a line from the start point here over here. We start on the radius because we're working from the corner outwards, and then we take the part width minus the radius for this section. Now the next command in the UCS is add arc radius. So what we do with this one, again, just like in the previous episode, we're actually drawing the arc from the center point here. So we're just defining that. And then all we're doing is performing another add line command and an add arc command to make up again the outside shape. Now, one thing that I just want to highlight again, when we're using the add arc radius, we provide the center point of the arc, but we also provide the start angle and end angle. In the example, you can see that the first point here is going from -90 to 0, and I've just drawn again in CAD on the right hand side a little symbol to show where we're starting and ending as we move around this operation. So we're starting at -90 and moving to 0, and then when we want to draw this curve here, we're going from 0 to 90, which is in this line here. This is just one example of a shape that obviously can be set on an operation, but you could use this to build up any different shape that you want to add here. Previously, for a route operation, what you'd have to do is you'd have to define a shape, save that away into your library, and actually set the operation to be a library part to get the shape of the operation. And one of the great things about this is when we're defining the shape, it does actually remain parametric. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab this part and I'm going to redefine the size of it. Make it bigger, that would help. So if I make it 1200, I'll just move it across here away from my CAD so we can see it properly. And you can see my radiuses remain the same, and obviously my border sizes remain the same as well. So there is a big benefit to defining some of the shapes. It may be a case of you write in a UCS to apply something like locks, and you may have multiple shape types that you work with, or special route operations that you're wanting to put into a UCS. So pretty cool. Okay, let's head back up to assembly level and just take a look at our next UCS. And this redefines the shape of a door. So this UCS is a little bit different. Rather than redefining the entire shape of the operation or door in this case, what we're doing is we're just creating the shape essentially to make the segment that we're going to be removing here. So what I can do on the left hand side, sorry, I'll start off by showing you what the UCS does. I can choose to add an arch to the top or bottom of the door, or possibly both. And as you can see, again, we're using the shaping object to redefine the shape here. So the only two segments that I'm actually adding to this one, and again, we have to draw in the correct order, is the line and the arc itself. Rather than using the add arc radius, I'm actually using add arc 3-point with this. With this add arc command, we have to provide the start, the midpoint and the end point, but for us it's pretty good because we can just use the curve offset attribute that we've got in here. So from the top, the first thing that I'm doing in the UCS is I'm doing a shape, and then I've got this.get shape, so I'm getting the shape of the door itself before I make any modifications. I'm then defining another shape object, and that's the arch shape itself, so this part here. I'm then getting my door height and my door width, which is just this.dy and this.dx. And then at this point, I'm creating my add line and add arc 3-point to make up the shape of the material to be removed. And then I'm doing shape.bool, and this is removing the shape that I've just created, the arch shape. And then the last thing I'm doing is I need to make sure that I set the side type on this door. So I'm doing shape.setSideType, and then I'm setting this to be a top. So if I just right click and choose to edit the shape on the door for a second and just click on the top edge here, you'll see that we've got several different edge types. Now, if you have a look in the help file, and I'll just switch to that on screen, you'll see that we've got several of these listed. You can either choose to use the name, or you can choose to use the integer, which is what I've done here when I've used the set side type command. Again, just to highlight, you can do get side type and set side type as well. So you can use get side type to get the side type of an object or an assembly. That would be for countertops, doors, and assemblies themselves. And then the last command that we use in here is this.setShape. And at this point, we're setting our new shape with our section removed, and then we're applying it to the axis of the shape that we got initially. Again, I've taken an excerpt from the UCS just to make this as simple as possible to explain it. So what I'll do is I'll just take you back up and take you through to look at the UCSs. Now, obviously with this, as you can see, we're shaping the top and the bottom of the door. And in the example we've just looked at, we're just shaping one sort of section. So what I've done is I've included a function in here that allows me to choose the side that I want to apply a shape to. And at this point, I'm creating the shape object, getting the door height and width. And then if my side equals 3, I'm then adding a line and an arc to shape the top. And then if it equals 4, I'm going to add a line and an arc to shape the bottom. And I'm sure you can guess, because we've got 3 and 4 here, 1 and 2, once I finish this UCS, are going to be shaping the sides and creating an arch in there as well. So my actual UCS itself, when I come down here, the first thing I'm doing is I'm just creating an attribute to allow myself a control to choose the side that I want to apply the shape into. And then if this doesn't equal 0, I'm then creating an inset value, which is my curve offset or arch inset. And then I'm just running through the same logic really that I looked at earlier. The only difference here is that instead of creating the shape and building up down here, I'm calling the function, and then I'm passing the side that I want to apply the shape to, and I'm choosing the inset value as well. So we've got 2 different sides, and once this works with left and right, you'll see another 2 sections in here as well before we hit set shape. Let's now take a look at how we can apply some shapes to countertops. So if I return out here, you can see on room level, I've also got another example and some CAD. And I'm just going to move this wall out of the way for a second and then hide walls on my layers so we can take a look at the CAD that we've got added. So if I just take a look, the countertop that we've got here, we're in plan view at the moment. If I just take a look in 3D, we're actually looking at this wall here. And what we can do, if I just move along, is on this wall, we have a UCS that is acting on the countertop, and this is actually setting a parameter on the wall itself. And if I just choose a notch shape and specify my notch height and width, and then head back into plan view, you can see that with this countertop, we're actually, again, redefining the outside shape altogether. So starting from the top on this one, the first thing that we're doing is creating a new shape object, which makes up the entire shape. We could be using a bool command again to remove this section here, but I thought it'd be good to draw the entire shape again. And then again, just like with an assembly or a door, we have a set order that we have to move around the shape. So we're starting with this side here, and we're moving along and round. Now this one's fairly simple because we're just using the add line command and then using this.dx and this.dy to essentially build up the shape. Once we get to this back edge here, when we draw this position, what we do is we draw this and we come down to the notch position just plus the height, which we're setting with our attribute. And then we've got the notch width on this side here, and again moving around the shape. So the shape itself is not very complex. Now what we are having to do with this, and what we have to do again on the doors, is we have to set the side types. And you'll see we've got each side type for our particular top here, but the side type numbers, and I should have mentioned this for the doors, is they actually start at 0. So the first one down here is side 0, and it works all the way up to side number 7, which is up at the back. One of the advantages this brings, if I just go back to elevation view, is we can add things like an option to define splash all along the back and around our edge. If I just go to 3D so we can see it properly. But as you can see, I've now got a splash that's running all the way around the back edge of my countertop as well. So as well, again, as being able to define the shape of the countertop, we can also define the sides of different assemblies, doors, counters. Hopefully you found this episode useful. Feel free to give us a like, share and subscribe. We're also on Facebook, that's facebook.com/thecabinetvisionguy, and Instagram too, that's instagram.com/thecabinetvisionguy. Cheers!